Asante sana.
The fall of Goma, a city trapped in war, a Noble Black News exclusive, a city in silence. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke and gunpowder. Goma, once a thriving city in the heart of the Democratic Republic of Congo, now lay in ruins. The echoes of gunfire had faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. For 3 days, the city had been a war zone. 3 days of chaos, gunfire, and bloodshed. Now it belonged to M23, the rebel group that had seized control. The streets, once alive with the sounds of merchants and children playing, were now filled with the remnants of war. Abandoned weapons, tattered uniforms, and the bodies of those who had refused to flee. From the shadows of broken buildings, children peeked out, their wide eyes searching for answers in a world that no longer made sense. Their mothers held them close, whispering silent prayers. The men, those who had survived, stood in groups, their faces hardened, their voices low. "Is this our freedom?" someone murmured. Another man, thin and exhausted, shook his head. There is no electricity, no food, no network. Life is broken. And yet, even in the midst of destruction, the people of Goma stood resilient. They had seen war before. They knew this was not the end. The UN's silent watch. The United Nations peacekeepers watched from their heavily guarded compound, their blue helmets standing out against the gray rubble of the city. The largest peacekeeping force in the world, and yet powerless. For years, the UN had been in the DRC, promising stability, promising security. But as M23 took over Goma, they did nothing. They had become bystanders in a war they could not control. Inside the compound, hundreds of Congolese soldiers had surrendered. Men who had once sworn to protect their people now lined up like prisoners. Their weapons lay discarded, their uniforms stained with sweat and dirt. But surrender did not mean safety. One by one, the mercenaries who had fought alongside the Congolese army were rounded up. They were foreigners, fighters from Romania, Serbia, South Africa, men who had come not for country, but for money. Now, they stood under the watchful eyes of their captors, their fates unknown. A rebel commander walked along the line, his voice cold and sharp. "You fought for money," he said, looking them in the eyes. "We fight for our lives." The mercenaries lowered their heads, knowing the truth in those words. The road to Rwanda. The prisoners were marched in single file, their boots dragging against the dirt roads of Goma. The wounded limped forward, some leaning on others for support. Among them was a Romanian soldier, a man who had spent years fighting wars that were not his own. He had been in Iraq, Afghanistan, and now Congo. But as he looked at the broken city behind him, he knew this war was different. For him, this had been a job. For the people of Goma, this was their home. He turned to one of the other mercenaries, his voice low. "Do you think we'll make it?" The man beside him, a South African sniper, shook his head. "Does it matter?" Ahead, the border to Rwanda loomed. The mercenaries knew that once they crossed, their war was over. But for Goma, the battle had just begun. A city in fear. In the heart of Goma, the people waited. They had seen rebel groups come and go. They knew what came next. M23 soldiers patrolled the streets, rifles slung across their shoulders. They moved with purpose, securing their new territory. Some residents dared to hope. Maybe this time will be different. Others knew better. An old woman sitting outside her crumbling home whispered a warning. They all say the same things. They all promise peace. But war never leaves this place. Night fell over the city, the darkness broken only by the glow of distant fires. Goma was no longer a battleground, but it was not at peace. The war behind the war. To the world, the conflict in eastern DRC is just another African war. Another story of rebels and government forces, of peacekeepers and broken promises. But to those who live here, it is something deeper. The M23 rebellion is not just about control of Goma. It is about power. It is about resources. It is about the minerals buried beneath Congo's soil, the gold, the coltan, the diamonds that fuel the global economy. It is about foreign interests that keep the conflict alive. For decades, Rwanda has been accused of backing M23, supplying them with weapons and support. The Congolese government claims that this war is not just between them and the rebels, but between them and an outside force. But ask M23 and they will tell you another story. A rebel fighter, his uniform barely fitting his thin frame, looked into the camera. "We are Congolese," he said. "We fight for a fair and noble cause." But the people of Goma knew the truth. No one fights for them. What happens next? As the last of the mercenaries crossed into Rwanda, Goma remained in limbo. Would the Congolese army return? Would the international community step in? Or was this the beginning of a new era of rule under M23? No one knew. But one thing was certain: the people of Goma would survive. Because they always had a message from Noble Black News. This is the reality of war in Africa. A war not just fought with guns, but with politics, economics, and foreign interests. The people of Goma are not just victims, they are survivors. And their story deserves to be told. What do you think? Will Goma find peace? Or is this just the start of another battle? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Noble Black News for more stories that matter. Africa's future is in our hands. Let's not look away.
Nyuma kidogo. Tunafurahi kuwaona wakubwa. Tunafurahi kuona wakubwa.
Asante sana.
Thank you for watching Noble Black News, where we strive to bring you the real stories and perspectives that truly matter. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your community, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Together, let's continue to uncover the untold stories and celebrate the achievements of the global Black community. Stay tuned for more powerful stories. Until next time.